Hi everyone, and welcome. Thanks so much for joining us today for the latest installment of FyneConf. It's really great to be back with you. It's fantastic to be back online talking about everything latest and greatest in the community. We've got a packed set of speakers this afternoon who are going to be talking about what's happening in the Fyne community, the latest technologies and best practices. Now, for anybody who's joining us for the first time, or a recap for folk who have been here before, I just wanted to take an opportunity to remind you about why we're here. And so the Fyne technology is all based on the vision that applications should no longer have to be operating system specific. You should be able to write them once, run them anywhere. This may sound familiar for how the web is ubiquitous and really took off for that reason, but it shouldn't be limited to documents and data transfer that way, but absolutely any piece of software that can be used. We're talking about no installers, no complicated instructions for how your software should be installed or distributed. It's just going to work. It's going to be drag and drop onto any computer in exactly the way that folk would expect to interact with it. And with the latest in technologies and development processes, we can throw out legacy problems of old, forget how thread management used to be a problem, memory management, and all sorts of challenging legacy items that still plague a lot of languages today. Actually, Go, the programming language, is a fantastic fit for this ambition, and it's why we picked it. So you're probably going to see a fair bit of Go code today. Hopefully that's not daunting to anybody who's new. And to old hands, hopefully we're putting it in idiomatic ways and it all seems familiar and easy to learn. But also, on top of that, we can make it trivial to build graphical applications in a way that it hasn't been before. They're going to be easy to get started, build what you're looking for, and they're going to look great out of the box. And as well as all of this, there's an opportunity to promote good engineering principles. The Go language has such great tools and processes, standards, documentation, and all of the things that make it easy to get up and running and building software that's going to be maintainable over time. And we're now finding ways that make it possible to do all of this with your graphical application development as well as the traditionally command line or cloud-based systems. And to put it simply in words from our website, our vision is to be the best toolkit for easily developing beautiful native graphical applications for desktop, the mobile, and beyond. So with that covered, it's been a phenomenally busy year, and I wanted to take an opportunity to tell you everything that is new. There's been a huge amount underway, and we're going to cover everything since the release of version 2.1.0 at FyneConf 1 year ago. So we have had 8 different releases of the library. There have been one major release, 7-point releases, and the version 2.3.0 that you might have been waiting for is really close now. We actually decided to extend it a little bit to get new contributions through Hacktoberfest, and so that will be arriving a little bit later on in November. Although that's not complete, since we last spoke to you, there have been over 7,000 commits from the community, people all around the world adding their contributions and fixes. And the project has increased in popularity according to the GitHub star ranking as well. We have 4,000 more stars than last time, and that red line showing the trajectory is looking very positive indeed. We have had over 25 new contributors in that time, and we're very thankful for every single person who is interested in helping out and being part of the project going forward. We also opened a Discord server, so thanks to the guys over there who encouraged us to be out in the wild outside of the Slack community. And we're also just starting to grow a group on Matrix as well, so hopefully we're reaching more people in socials. The number of applications that we have seen out there has increased by about 45%, so nearly doubled since last year. If you're interested, of course, there's the ever-growing list of open source applications at apps.fyne.io, but we're also seeing a large growth in production companies, so people who are using this for their consumer-facing software or internally for building their business-critical applications. And also we have the Fyne extensions repository, which has had some great additions this year, including a date picker, a new responsive layout, and a map widget. So if you're not familiar with that repository, I definitely recommend that you go and check that out after we're finished up here today. So like I said, we've had one major release has been out already. That's 2.2, which started the 2.2 branch of different releases. And we introduced in that release the system tray for desktop applications, delivering through a web browser for Fyne apps, which was a new and exciting addition. We also made it possible to define your themes through JSON, which made it a little bit easier for non-developers to start manipulating the look and feel of your applications. We added menu shortcuts, keyboard shortcuts for menus, which is adding to the richness of the overall menu experience for applications, and a host of new platforms, including OpenBSD, NetBSD, and also the iOS simulator. So now you can run iOS applications inside Apple's standard simulator on your desktop. And we also introduced an app metadata API. That and a few others I'll speak a little bit more about. And then we have the upcoming 2.3. There is a great new theme update that I will show you a little bit more that's coming as well. We're introducing the ability to synchronize cloud data for user preferences and file storage. It was mentioned towards the end of the event last year with a little teaser, and we've been able to deliver on all of those things. It's going to be great to show you what's possible there. We'll hear a lot more about the cloud capabilities later on. We're working also in improving the text handling for the engine that is displaying all of the textual elements in the user interface, widening the people that are actually going to get use of this right out of the box. I'll cover a little bit more about that. And we're introducing some more advanced application level containers and layouts, app skeleton for example, and a whole lot more that we're hoping to get squeezed into the release that is going to be arriving soon. Like I said, we've had real interest in the Hacktoberfest month, which we're not even halfway through. And so we're keen to see how all of that comes together for a release next month. But let's look at a couple of those things in a little bit more detail for people who aren't familiar perhaps with these features. So the system tray, like I said, this is for desktop applications. You've probably seen it around before. It supports macOS, Windows, and most Linux systems. So the macOS is what you see in the screenshot there. The Windows looks exactly like you would expect there. And the Linux is most systems because they do need to be running the modern spec, which is the dbus communication for App Indicator, but almost all desktop Linux is now running that. This is going to be working without any additional dependencies, so no need to bring in libraries or external tools to make this happen. And it uses familiar types inside the Fyne APIs. We use the same menu data type that you would use for your main menu or pop-up menus, and we're using resources for the icons. So it should all look very familiar. Let's just see a little bit of code that demonstrates that. So what you can see here, it starts with a type check that makes sure the running application is a desktop app. And so that will be true if you're running on a desktop application and not mobile. From there, we've got a cast of the application to a desktop version of the application, which we can use. We define a menu here, very simply, it's saying hello world. We add a menu item called hello. And when that is tapped, we'll print out system tray menu tapped. We just pass that menu into set system tray menu, which is going to set up everything. And no prizes for guessing, you can also set the tray icon, which is going to use a resource to set the icon that's going to be displayed. That line of code, that block of code is actually all that's used to display the screenshots you saw there. We automatically add a quit option for your application there as well, just like we do for main menus, where it fits the standard operating system lifecycle for an application. Let's talk a little bit about web browsers. So we now have a new target platform for Fyne builds called Web. Thanks so much to Cedric, who put a huge amount of work into making this possible. It's truly phenomenal what's been achieved. In fact, we're not only building one platform here, we're building both WASM and Gopher.js targets. If that doesn't mean anything, that's really not a problem. But it gives us the opportunity to pick the best runtime for your browser. we have discovered that we've been pushing their capabilities to the limits in some cases. And so by having both, we could pick one that's most likely going to work very well in the browser environment that it discovers when it boots up. You can deploy your builds to any web server essentially. We've noticed that some of them don't necessarily support the WASM file type out of the box, but a simple configuration tweak on your server there is all that's necessary to get it running. It's mostly happening in the browser. And in fact, if you don't want to deploy this to a remote server to see it working, you can just run FyneServe, which is a new command on the latest version of the Fyne command that will serve your application over the web. And so you can see in the screenshot here, you just connect to localhost on port 8080, and it's going to render your Fyne application. We see here the Notes app that you might have noticed from previous presentations running directly in the browser. Also, the metadata that I mentioned in passing was a chance to bring things together. We noticed a lot of people were looking for version information and others in their application. So primarily what we have done is taken the Fyne app markup file that you might remember from last year, which describes the metadata of your application for build. It allows you to avoid repeating parameters into the command line when you're making your builds and your packages. And we load this at build time so that it's available through the metadata function on the application type. And that's going to return an app metadata struct, which you can then interrogate using icon, name, version, and other field access to get information. So you can use this to know and present to your user the information that your application was built with, without relying on complex parameters or build scripts. Of course, mostly I'm excited to share with you the theme updates that we have been working on. So this screenshot here is showing the new theme for dark mode. You can see it's got lighter text, thinner input decorations, and overall a cleaner feel to the look and feel. We have at this time taken the opportunity to separate internal widget padding from the external padding between items for layout purposes. So actually you can do more now with your theme definition, and the items are going to be able to be spaced further apart without appearing larger internally. And this is the same in the light mode. There's slightly less change in light mode. The contrast was already quite good there. And it's a very pleasing mix, I think you'll agree, of the new definition of blues along with the lighter weighting of the elements around input controls. And we also have been working on a slightly better theming for dialogues, things that pop up over the UI to give you better contrast between the application below, but also a pleasing look to the interface elements that display to your user. And also text handling. This is being rebuilt basically from the ground up. I want to shout out to Chris, Benoit, and others in the GoText project, and from the team building the Geo toolkit. They have put so much work into this that we're hugely indebted to them for the work that they've done. So this brings a much more sophisticated layout and rendering engine for text. It means that complex glyphs are now going to be rendered correctly. So for non-Latin languages where two Unicode characters would come together, for example, to influence how something is displayed, that's going to operate correctly from our next release going forward. It brings in support for bidirectional text. Actually, as you could see on the slide on the right, that's an example. There's two different directions of the way the characters are composed there, and that's going to be rendered correctly going forward as well. Another benefit is that we just get crisper, more efficient font rendering. So it helps the theme look as good as it does, but it also is going to be much quicker and more efficient on memory usage. But mostly, this is enabling full internationalization further down the road. We've been amazed to see how well people are succeeding in languages that we haven't supported directly in the toolkit, but we're going to make sure that all of those people are just as loved as everyone else in the community from this release onwards. And lastly, the cloud sync and storage. This has been in development for a little while, but now is a core part of the toolkit, and so you can synchronize the data in your Fyne applications right out of the box. We're able to sync the user data and also documents that users might create inside your application. We're working to deliver various different cloud providers, and also, of course, the ability to bring your own provider into your application. There's a lot more about cloud data and synchronization later on this afternoon. So yeah, some of those features are already available. Most of them are coming in the next release, which is landing in mid-November. I can't wait to get this out and see what everybody makes with this new functionality. Thanks so much for your feedback on what we've done to date and the help testing to make sure that this is as great as it possibly can be. And so welcome to FyneConf 2022. Everybody who's joining us now on the day or watching these videos later on. We have for you 3 hours of great presentations that are going to be streamed through this live stream as we go. We're covering all sorts of topics around code, design, and best practices for the Fyne toolkit and building applications. And we're going to wrap up later on with a question and answer session with the Fyne team. And everybody is open to join us there. We shared the information earlier, and of course there'll be a link just as we wrap up later on. So please do join us if you think of any questions. But also, if you have any questions that you're just burning to get answered as we go through the day, please do ask them as they come to you. We're going to be monitoring the communities on Slack, Discord, Twitter, and the YouTube comments and questions section, and we'll endeavour to answer the questions at the end of each of the segments that are being presented. So pop your ideas there, or feel free to ask them face to face later on. We are very thankful indeed to our generous donors and community sponsors. There's too long a list to name, unfortunately, but we have them all on our website. Thank you for your ongoing support of the project. And also this year, thanks to Fyne Labs, who have sponsored the event. They have provided the speaker t-shirts, which a few of our speakers are sporting today, and they'll be sent out to everybody who has pre-recorded a contribution to the project. And I think that is everything from a welcome. So we will take a short break now before our next segment, which is about the interfaces behind custom widgets.